So what season is it in America today? You might think it's fall, but it's actually false flag season. Yes, indeed, it is false flag season. Thank you for joining me for this podcast. I'm also the publisher of falseflag.news. And what is a false flag? Well, hopefully you know what a false flag is, but for those who don't, a false flag is usually an act of terrorism or sabotage carried out in order to push a specific political narrative and to achieve a reaction from the public that accomplishes those political goals of the people carrying out the act. False flags have happened many times throughout history. They happen all the time. Charlottesville, for example, there were people marching around with Nazi flags who were Antifa left-wing members. So why would they march around with Nazi flags? It's a false flag. They're trying to create the impression that there are Nazis hiding under every bed and around every corner all across America, which is laughable, of course. There might be, I don't know, a few hundred, maybe 1,000, a couple thousand at most, actual Nazi party members or something in the U.S. I've never seen one. Have you ever seen one? You'd probably have an easier time finding unicorns than actual Nazis in America. But they wanted to create the impression that Nazis are everywhere, so they have a false flag. Now, moving on, this is false flag season. Now, what kinds of agendas do the powers that be want to achieve? Now, under the Obama administration, they were always mass shooting false flags. Have you noticed how the mass shootings have pretty much stopped since Trump became president? Yeah, that's because most of the mass shootings under Obama were false flag operations. Eric Holder, for example, was caught running a false flag operation called Operation Fast and Furious, where they allowed guns to, well, sort of make their way into the hands of Mexican drug dealers. And they had no plan of how to track these guns, but the bigger plan was to spur a lot of gun-based murders and violence in southern states, such as Arizona, so that Eric Holder and President Obama at the time could claim guns are killing people and we have to ban guns. So that was a false flag operation, well-known, well-documented, Operation Fast and Furious. We've written about it at naturalnews.com. There were elements of Sandy Hook that were false flag operations, not the entire thing. There were people killed, but there were elements that were created in more of a theatrical aspect, such as hiring crisis actors to appear on television and fake like they were parents alongside the real parents that were interviewed, but they always have to augment it with staged actors. So it's a blend of reality and theater. That's also a kind of false flag, what you might call a hybrid false flag operation, where there's a real event that takes place, but then CNN will have crisis actors on camera, faking like victims or faking like parents or faking like expert witnesses and so on. So that's another kind of false flag operation. So given that background, you might wonder, what kind of false flag is coming? Well, what does the government want to accomplish in terms of politics? One thing is they want to crush Bitcoin. So I've already publicly predicted this many times. They're going to have a false flag terrorist attack that is fully funded by Bitcoin. And that way, when they nab the, quote, terrorists, who will actually be probably meth heads recruited off the street by the FBI, and the entire terror plot will be an FBI schemed up plot, because that's what they do. I mean, they're famous for that. They create the plots, and then they recruit people to carry them out, and then they arrest them and charge them with terrorist, crimes. And then they say that we stop terrorism, you see. But what they will do is they'll recruit somebody to carry out some kind of terror plot. And they might actually have to let one go through to make it big enough. They might actually have a dirty bomb explosion in a major city, or somebody poisoning the water supply, or somebody setting off a grenade in a subway car. So who knows? They'll come up with something. They'll sacrifice a few lives because that they don't care. But then they will establish that it was all funded by Bitcoin. And they'll say, look, Bitcoin is it's the cryptocurrency of terrorism. And Bitcoin is bad, and everybody has to be stopped from using Bitcoin because, see, it turns people into terrorists. Just seeing the word Bitcoin makes you want to blow things up, I guess, according to that. So they will find a way to blame Bitcoin, and they'll use it to outlaw Bitcoin, or better yet, have a government identity layer on every blockchain that is approved for legal use. So the blockchain is here to stay, but the Bitcoin blockchain will be criminalized. They will force everybody into other cryptocurrency blockchains where the government knows your identity and can tax and track every transaction. And how do you get there? You have a false flag operation, people. It's like 9/11 all over again. There's an agenda. The government either allows it to happen, which is what happened in 9/11, or they take part in it happening, which is like Building 7, and then they blame the terrorists, and then they get their surveillance laws passed, you see. That's how the NSA became so powerful. So the same thing is coming for Bitcoin. There are other agendas that will probably be accomplished through false flag operations. For example, suppose the U.S. wanted to attack North Korea. Couldn't they just fake like North Korea launched a missile that destroyed, let's say it detonated 5 miles west of the major port in Long Beach, the Long Beach port in California? Couldn't the government just set off its own bomb out there and say Kim Jong-un did it, and then use that as a justification to attack North Korea? I'm not saying that's a bad thing to attack North Korea, by the way. I think we should attack North Korea. I think we should wipe out Kim Jong-un. I really do. I've talked about that. He's a danger to the world. But in order to justify it, they may set off a nuke somewhere, probably out in the ocean, in order to blame Kim Jong-un so they can justify launching an attack on him. You see, false flags can take many different forms. And sometimes they can be used by the government to actually achieve something that strategically, might not be such a bad idea, like killing Kim Jong-un. Nevertheless, false flags are very deceptive, and they're usually used to expand the power of the totalitarian state and enslave the people. So beware, we are entering not the fall, but the false flag season. Check out my website, falseflag.news, for more coverage of such events. And you can also read newstarget.com for daily news updates on current events. Thank you for listening.
Learn more at healthrangerreport.com.
Thank you for watching. If you want to support our mission, visit us at healthrangerstore.com for the world's largest selection of lab-verified superfood and nutritional products for healthy living. It's at healthrangerstore.com.